Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope you're all doing well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the local innovation ecosystems that we're setting up as part of this project, which is a joint project between MIT D-Lab, where I work, and Oxfam America. And it's a project which is looking at strengthening community preparedness in Central America. And it does this through three major mechanisms: capacity development, risk reduction, and asset protection, and then finally sharing knowledge and learning. Right. So what I wanted to do to start was to tell you a little bit by what do we mean by local innovation ecosystems. So when we talk about it, we think of it in terms of design trainings where people learn the design process, in terms of maker spaces where people can work on the projects, and ongoing mentoring. And we often think of this as the design trainings as being sort of a catalyst that starts the fire of innovation. And the maker spaces are the fireplaces where the fire can burn brightly and innovation can keep working. And finally, the mentoring is the bellows that provides the air and the oxygen that the fire needs to keep burning brightly. And we found that all of these three things are necessary in order to promote community design and innovation for solving local challenges. I want to take just a short moment for a little philosophical interlude. And I wanted to just start by looking at this, which is a picture of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. How many of you have seen this before? Right. It's a representation that talks about the different things that we need as human beings in order to live a fulfilled life. And it categorizes things in three different ways. The basic needs that we have in terms of shelter, food, water, safety, etc. And then the psychological needs that have to do with our relationships and the things that make us happy. And then finally, the self-actualization needs, which are those that allow us to believe we can and affect our situation and our future. And at D-Lab, we often look at this through a technology lens, where we like to think that using technology is something that helps you with your basic needs. However, creating technologies is something that can change the way you think about yourself and change your relationship. So, for example, when you create a technology, you often do it in a team and you build teams, and you also feel differently about yourself if you're able to do that. And I want to show you a brief example of that. Okay. So this is a technology that we use widely around the world. It's one of my favorite technologies. It's just a simple piece of plastic, but it can save you literally hours of work. And it works like this. You don't want to make a mess on the stage. So you can... Many people around the world store corn in this dried way, and it is a tedious process to remove the kernels from the corn. However, with this device, it happens very quickly. Have any of you done this at home? For those of you who actually have shelled corn by hand, you will realize how amazing that is. And it's the technology that can really make a difference in people's lives. So that addresses the challenge of using technology. But imagine if you were a woman like this woman in the picture who spends hundreds of hours doing this by hand, and instead of just being given a technology, you make it yourself from local resources. So instead of using a plastic one, you can make it out of sheet metal using small machines that we developed at D-Lab. And now think about how this might make you feel. That in less than an hour, you can make a technology that will save you 100 hours of work every year. So that makes you think a little bit differently about yourself and your relationship to technology. And this is one of the important aspects of the way that we do our work at D-Lab and why we think it's important to develop local innovation ecosystems. So you might often have heard of the innovation pipeline, which takes us from ideas through to impact. And this is something which we at D-Lab believe that there's actually impact along the entire pipeline. So there's impact when you have an idea that could help improve your life. And then if you can take that idea and reduce it to practice, there's impact. If you can take that technology that you've created and implement it and share it with other people, there's impact. And then there's, of course, the impact of the technology itself. So this is one of the things that we think is important, especially in terms of community-based disaster resistance, is the impact that it has in people believing that they can solve the challenges that they face. And one of the things that we try to do is we try not just to incubate inventions that already have happened, but to foster the process of innovation and to get people to enter that pipeline and to believe in themselves as innovators, as designers and creators. We've created a methodology that we call creative capacity building, which tries to transform people from passive recipients of technology to active creators of technology. During that training, we expose people to the design process, we teach them prototyping skills, and they go through the process of designing technologies that can improve their lives and livelihoods. We've done many of these trainings, and in Uganda we actually did a randomized control trial to look at the results and the impacts of these types of trainings. One of the things we found was that people created technologies that saved labor and made their life easier. Particularly the technologies they created saved labor on an average of 80 to 90%. They also developed technologies that led to income generation. And in the families that we worked with, they increased their household income by nearly 40%. We also found that people were more likely to adopt technologies that they had created themselves rather than just seeing them in a technology demonstration. And we found that these increase in adoption rates were 4 to 13 times as great, which makes me think a little bit about how many technology demonstrations I should be doing in my life, and that better to show people how to make the technologies. And then finally, we saw that the technologies significantly shifted gender roles, with women having increased access to cash crops and a reduction in their burden of labor. This is a picture that I love because it shows a technology that was created by one of the groups, which was feeling that they were being cheated by the people who were buying their crops. And they felt that they might have a 50 kg bag, but the middlemen were maybe only paying them for 40 kilograms. So what they did was they built their own weighing scales, so they could ensure that if they were getting a fair price, and if the cheating was happening in any direction, they were the ones that were going to benefit, not the others. So we've seen a lot of positive results from this type of training, and we had the opportunity to work with Oxfam in order to build some local innovation ecosystems in order to increase people's capacity to respond to disasters and climate change. So now I want to talk a little bit about building an innovation ecosystem in El Salvador. And this is a video that comes from the last few months of works that we're doing. Okay. So we started by doing one of these trainings in El Salvador, and we took people through design exercises and activities where they had to challenge their creative thinking. We taught them the design process and engaged them in learning prototyping techniques. They learned how to make their own corn shellers, and everybody loved them. We then went through the different steps of the design process, where they formed teams to work on different projects, and they did team building activities. They generated ideas for different ways that they could solve the problem, and they chose the best ideas using an evaluation matrix. From there, they started prototyping and building their different solutions. People who had never used power tools before got a taste of what it was like, and we saw a lot of empowerment happening. They had a chance to show their technologies to the mayor. That was a bean thresher. This is a project building lamps out of waste plastic. This is a seed planter. And this is a device that allows you to cook beans without using a lot of firewood. This was a youth activity where they learned how to make and do silkscreen shirts. And so the entire group developed 5 different projects as a part of that training. And then a select number of those people went to Guatemala to explore the innovation ecosystem there. They learned about pedal-powered technologies at Biciteca, a corn mill, a pedal-powered washing machine. And then they went to a more high-tech innovation center at one of the universities at Univalle, where they learned about robotics. They went to see a community innovation center in Santa Catarina, where they learned about composting toilets and other sanitation solutions. And then they decided to take what they had learned there to envision their own innovation center. And during the last week, literally just last week, they were working to create that innovation center out of an abandoned house in the community. We had 2 people come who had created innovation centers in Guatemala and Colombia to help them through that process. And in just 3 or 4 days, the house was gradually transformed into a place where people could come and make things. The staff was trained in various techniques by learning to make furniture, shelves, lighting, etc., where they learned electronics and welding. They learned how to grind, and they became much more confident so that they could then be running the Innovation Center. And this is the Innovation Center staff, and this is the center. Innova Tepec, which means Mountain of Innovation. And on, last Saturday, we held a design fiesta opening the Innovation Center to community members. So people came from all around the community to see what was there. They learned how to silk screen from the youth who had developed that as their project. And they learned about various technologies that they had created themselves or that were developed at other innovation centers around the world. The local government and community leaders were also there, and people were able to show the projects that they had developed during the CCB training in earlier months. This is the mayor receiving an Innova Tepec bag, and this is the staff. So it was quite a busy week, and the center is now open for business. I can't tell you all the results of the center, but I can share a few of the results from the CCB training that we did there in December. So one of the things that we found was that that people went with a sort of a limited knowledge and belief in their capacity in things like working on teams to solve problems, to do the design process, to develop a solution, and to build things using local resources and tools. And we found a pretty tremendous change in people's attitudes. We went from more than half the people having, or nearly half the people having no sense of confidence in their ability to build things, to nearly everyone having that sense of confidence. We had more than half the people not being clear on the design process, and then nearly everyone being extremely confident in their capabilities. So what we've done is we've tried to create a place where people can work, and people who feel confident in their ability to do the work, to identify challenges, and to create solutions to them. We also, as you saw in the video, we've created the Innovation Center, or when I say we, I mean the community members with some assistance from D-Lab and our network. And we'll be going back to this Innovation Center in order to run a training, an additional design training, which is focused on disaster resistance and preparedness, looking at teaching tools about water treatment, energy generation, sensors, systems, etc. And so hopefully in the next conference, we'll be able to report on what technologies they created for that. Thank you very much. And I think we have no time for questions or comments, or do we? Okay, we have a little bit of time for questions or comments if anyone has a question or comment. Okay. Well, with that, I'll say thank you very much and hand it back to Georgia, and I'll clean up the corn as you introduce the next person.